One of the deals that did just get done, it was a deal that was first reported by you between the Bulls and the Knicks. Larry Hughes to New York in exchange for Tim Thomas and Jerome James. How do you grade this deal?
Well, I think it's a good deal for both sides. I think in the situation, you're in the New York Knicks, you don't necessarily need it, but Larry Hughes is an additional guard. You've got Chris Duhon. You've got Nate Robinson. Larry Hughes is capable, when healthy, of playing both positions. And in Mike D'Antoni's push-it, frenetic pace style of system, you want a Larry Hughes there. Not to say that he is what he used to be, but it doesn't hurt to get him because it doesn't hurt you financially. He's coming off the books after next year, just like Tim Thomas and Jerome James was. And Jerome James was just lead weight. He wasn't doing anything for you. So you wanted him going. Tim Thomas was able to do some things for you, but the way Al Harrington has performed under the stewardship of Mike D'Antoni and his offensive system in New York, he shined, so you haven't really needed Tim Thomas that much. Getting Larry Hughes, you definitely needed an additional guard, especially after losing a guy like Jamal Crawford, who you shipped to Golden State, although I don't think Larry Hughes compares to Jamal Crawford right now. But you've got a guy that can come in and spell for Chris Duhon and Nate Robinson. And that's obviously very, very important to Mike D'Antoni and Donnie Walsh while maintaining what your game plan is by not jeopardizing yourself financially.
Well, let's take a look at what the Bulls have just gained, considering they're about a game and a half out of the playoff race.
Well, again, you have a situation where you've got a guy like Tim Thomas who's a bigger body. You unload a guy like Larry Hughes, who clearly was not happy playing in Chicago. Derrick Rose is your franchise player. You don't need Larry Hughes for more than 5 minutes a game at the point guard spot. Ben Gordon is playing for a new contract, so he's going to put up the rock, and he does that better than Larry Hughes. So that's a problem for Larry Hughes. It wasn't an ideal situation, not to mention the fact that even though you were never a Michael Jordan caliber player or anything like that, you were making $13 million playing for the Chicago Bulls. You've been either hurt or unproductive. People are not interested in that. They wanted Benny Wallace gone. He's shined with LeBron James. Now they wanted Larry Hughes gone. I think it's a good move for both sides because I don't think Chicago wanted Larry Hughes, and I don't think Larry Hughes wanted Chicago.
Is it weird that Vinny Del Negro played with Tim Thomas? And I will say, too, I found it curious that his quote was, I played with him. I didn't have a problem with him.
I will say this to you about Vinny Del Negro. When they first hired him, I wasn't high on this, simply because I'm like inexperienced, no coaching experience whatsoever. You were trying to be a front office executive in Phoenix. You end up landing the head coaching job in Chicago. But when you sit down and talk to him and you talk to the people around him, they tell you how hard he works, how dedicated he is, how much of a perfectionist he is. And more importantly, you look at a stud like Derrick Rose. This is your franchise player. You're evolving things around. And sometimes it takes tweaking things just a little bit. Look at the NFL. Let me use that as an analogy. Who thought that Mike Tomlin would end up being a Super Bowl championship coach? But he ended up making it happen. Paxson went in a different direction. Clearly, Vinny Del Negro was considerably cheaper. And then when you look at the staff that he assembled, having somebody like Bernie Bickerstaff, who's an experienced basketball mind, former coach at Washington, former executive in Charlotte, as your right-hand guy on that bench, certainly helps you along the way as well. So I don't want to knock Vinny Del Negro. I think that considering the circumstances that he's had to adopt, he's done a pretty good job.